The wage calculator. Let's build the wage calculator together. Make sure you're working alongside me, doing everything that I'm doing here to build this thing from scratch. Now, what is the wage calculator? Well, the wage calculator calculates your paycheck based on how many hours you worked and the rate per hour. So if you're working for $20 an hour or $15 an hour, or $10 an hour, and you enter how many hours you worked, we could figure out your wage. Now, this is gross wage. Okay, no taxes coming out or anything like that. The wage is simply a multiplication, but there is one little issue here. If the person worked more than the amount that you're supposed to work per week, and we're going to make that 40 hours, the allotted maximum number of hours you should work, then the person gets overtime. You see how that if statement got in there? If they work more than 40 hours, they're going to get overtime. So we need to calculate the wage based on whether they worked more than 40 hours, or less than 40 hours. So we have this if-else situation going on, and then we're going to figure out what's the right salary for that individual. So to do that, let's just go ahead and make a project. Now we're going to make it in Unit 4. So I'm going to go to Unit 4, open up Unit 4, this one. I'm going to go ahead and make a class, call it Wage Calculator. Okay, so its super class is going to be JFrame. And yes, I'm going to need a main method, so I'm checking that. So I have the super as JFrame, uppercase J, uppercase F, and wage calculator, no space, and then I hit finish. All right, so let me go ahead and line things up like we usually do. Get rid of this stub. Okay, so we have this import JFrame here, so I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna do my imports after. I'm not gonna worry about them. It's by the time we start working, I'm not worrying about mistakes. Okay, so yes, this is a mistake here, but let's just keep going. So when we're making an app, we got to figure out um, what pieces do we need. Okay, and we need a number of items that we're going to use, a number of methods. So I'm going to do what is called stubbing out. I'm just going to write down all the things that we need. So private, we need JLabel, and we're going to call it hourly wage JLabel. Hourly wage JLabel. Okay, that's one that we need. We also need the hourly wage JText field. That's two. We also need the hours worked. So you got to tell me how many hours you work. And we need that also for the JText field. All right, so we have a couple of things here that we want. And sometimes people say, well, instead of writing all these lines of code, why don't you compact these? Since it's just labels, why don't you just take this label, put a comma, and put that there? Okay? And that's a good idea. I mean, it makes you write less code. So why not? And the same with this guy. Why are we doing this? Just separate them with commas and we just list all. Okay, so what else label do we need? Well, we need a gross wages. Okay, so the gross wages JLabel. And we also need the gross wages JText field. Okay, let me just kind of close up this left side here because we don't want to actually be, well, I'm not going to leave it open for a second. So let me kind of slide this over a little bit. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so we could see. Too small. Okay, that's better. All right, so I think I have all my labels and all my text fields, and then the next one I need is a button. calculate button. Now this button is going to calculate the wages when we click on it. All right, so we have all the things that we need here. So let's go ahead and import. So this JFrame here, put your mouse on it, import it, the label as well, get it from the API, same as the text field, and finally the button. Okay, so we got all the pieces that we want. There's one more thing that we need. We need, what we need here is we need the decimal format because we're dealing with money here. So let's go ahead and make decimal format dollars. I always call it dollars because it's money, so it makes sense to call it what it is. I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of it so it looks right as well. So when this thing shows up, when I do dollars.format, it's going to format into the money and make it look nice. So I'm going to import that as well. Okay, that's all we need. We got all the pieces we need. Now let's go to the methods and constructors and all those good things. So first off, the constructor. A constructor is simply the name of the class, no return type, no void, no int, no nothing at all. Just open and close parentheses. It's going to be a default constructor. That's what we use most of the time. We also need some methods. So private void create user interface. You guys should be professionals at this point. So we want that. We want a couple other methods as well. So we want to set up the content pane and set up the window and all that stuff. So we have a bunch we need to set up. We need to set up the window, the content pane. So we're going to go with the content pane first, windows second. Then we need to set up a label, text field, and a button. No, I could go ahead and type all that code. But instead of typing all that code, I'm going to borrow it. See, that's the whole point. That's why I left this side open because I knew I was going to go back in, so no need to close it out. Let me go back to unit 3. I'm going to expand by clicking that little button to the side. Let me open up this a little bit. And the app I want to look at is the mortgage calculator. Why? Because this is a wage calculator. Mortgage calculator might have things that we need. They're both calculators. Let me go ahead and click on that. So now I'm in the mortgage calculator. It's a little too small. I'm going to look at the methods. So set up content pane, set up label, set up text field, set up button. Beautiful. Set up window. Well, let me grab all of this and you do the same. Okay, all of this. I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to go to the wage calculator. I'm going to paste it. Now, I know that this is not something that I'm going to use all of it. I'm just going to pick the pieces I want and ignore those that I don't want. Okay. So right now I have the content pane. Oh, we don't actually have a content pane. So where all of these are going to go? Okay. Big mistake. So that's okay. I'm just going to drop this down and put up here private container content pane. Okay, this is the first thing that we need because all of these components are going to go on this. So container needs to be imported. I'll do just that. Okay, so now we have a content pane. It gets set up and we have a label, we have a text field. Alignment right, I like that because calculators normally align their numbers on the right. Let's see if anything else that we need here. I don't think I want my content pane white. Let's make a different color. How about gray? How about dark gray? Okay, how about that? Yeah, it's not a mortgage calculator though. It's a wage calculator. And I'm not so sure I want it to be this bounds though. So I'm going to have to change a couple of this. So let me just change up this. I don't want it this big. I don't mind it starting off at 400, 400. That's the X and Y coordinate. But what I do need to do is to figure out the size. So this, and these were all predetermined. Okay, so when you write an app eventually on your own, you're gonna have to figure out these first. Okay, so I kind of have all the pieces I want for my app. I don't have everything yet, so let me just start looking at the inside the methods, making sure everything is fine. Coming down here, the main method is wage calculator. Where am I getting this from? This guy. Okay. This guy that I'm creating. I'm going to make an instance of this. I'm going to call it app, as we always do, equals new this. Okay. Then app dot set default close operation, and then JFrame exit and close. Okay, so that my main method is finished. This is good. All right, now in order for me to see something, I need to go to my create user interface, okay, and call that method. So I'm copying it, putting it right in here, and I need to do things in here. But the first thing I need to do is this dot set up the content pane, right? And then the last thing I need to do is this dot set up the window. Okay, that this literally, we're gonna do this all the time, every single time. So I'm gonna run this to see how it looks. I should get a little, okay, small. These components, okay, but let me don't worry about those right now. Instead, let me go ahead and see if there's anything else that I have missing. Well, I know that the action that the button is gonna perform needs to be there as well. So let me see if I find that. Do I have any action? Okay, I'm looking in the mortgage calculator. Ooh, look at that. I have a calculate button action. So why don't I get that, right? See, when you write good code, you don't have to type it again. You could borrow it from something from before. And put my actions right down here. Okay. I do know that this is not the right action, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And I'm gonna leave this like that. And I have my calculate action here. So let's make a little note here. This is the button action. And so I have everything almost done. Now I just need to fill in the pieces. So let's go ahead and fill them in. The labels, I'm going to copy them. So I'm writing my code and making it fast. Okay, these are my labels. I want my text fields. Those are going to be next. Okay. So you could see I have them all, and now I'm just going to drop them all down vertically. If you see what I'm doing here, it should make sense to you. If not, make sure you ask a question. So I'm going to set them up, and this is going to be equal to this dot set up the label. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. So quickly I'm writing this app. It's because I did stuff before. This dot setup, and the setup text field and setup label are going to pop up because the computer knows that the guy on the left is a text field. So clearly that's the one you might want to be using. And then of course I got to do the button. So quickly I'm doing this. Hopefully you're recognizing how fast you can do something, especially if you have something from before. Okay. Now I know I'm not finished. I'm not worried about the errors. Those don't scare me. I just know I need these things set up. I need this set up. So I have everything set up right now. The only thing I need to do though is I need to make sure that I add the action listener. And the guy that I want to add is this dot create the calculate action. So this button now has this action tied to it, and all I have to do is fill out this try block with my code, and I'm good. So right now I need the bounds, and so I'm going to copy these. Look how I'm doing this, okay? Watch carefully, one at a time. I'm just saying which one I'm setting up, okay? I'm doing it for the labels. I'm doing it for the text fields. See, I'm doing each one. All right, so I want to know what text goes on the hourly wage label. Of course, hourly wage. right? What text is going to go on the hours worked? Well, hours worked. This is how many hours you worked. Person's going to type in. What about this one? The gross wages. Gross wages. Let's say gross wage. All right, so that's that. Then I go to the hourly wage text field. Now these text fields, I'm going to make them start off with nothing. Person has to type something. And I know in the mortgage one, I actually had something in there, but this time I want to start off with nothing. So here comes the bounds. The hourly wage label is going to be 16. And again, these were all calculated before. 16. The width is 100. And this is 21. As a matter of fact, I made them all 121. So we could just fill those in. I just made them nice and easy to do, so that way one thing you must do when you're making your UI is to keep things consistent. So it's actually easy to code and easy to remember as well. 16, 16, 100. The other one is 120, 16 for its field. And this is how I pretty much pair them up. So for every label and field, the values here are going to be pretty similar in a sense. So the next one is 16 and 56. See, it's dropping. And then the last label is 16 and 96. So at this point, you should say, okay, the x coordinate is all the same, but the y's are changing. 16 and 56. How did we get there? We added 40 pixels. So if I add 40, I'm going to add 40. Okay? 121 is the same for all. So the y values are about to change. Well, this one starts off as an x value of 120. That would suggest that everybody starts off at 120. These are all the text fields. So about the y values then, okay? If you're thinking about them, I hope you can see that this is 56 and this will be 96. Okay, the button, first of all, let me set you up. The text on the button, I'm gonna say calculate. All right, where is the button? So we gotta figure out the bounds for Mr. Button. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I get this right. It's 2136. And again, these were all pre-calculated. So now once you finish setting things up, you just run it and see if it looks. All right, so hourly wage. My interface doesn't look so good because this is black text, and these are, you know, so this does not look too hot here because my text is too dark and maybe I'll go for just gray. Let's see how that looks. Better, a little better. Okay. So of course I could type in here, but no action is being performed yet because remember, then there's nothing there. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to figure out how this app actually works. And for your project in this unit, I will have all of this done for you, and you're going to focus mainly on the if statements. So before we jump in, because that's all we need to do, we need to just write this action and this app is finished. But before we do that, what I want to do up here is I want to introduce something called a constant. I shouldn't say introduce, but reintroduce because it was introduced before. And this is going to be a constant. Private. The final double. And I'm going to call this max underscore hours. And it's going to be 40.0. And again, this is 40.0 because it's a double. And this final means this is a constant. Okay, which means this is how much we expect people to work. And if you work above 40 hours per week, this is a weekly calculator here. If you work above 40 hours, we're going to get you some overtime. And the overtime is going to be very simple. A time and a half. It's going to be 1.5 times the hourly rate. So what we got to do now is we need to set up this action down here. And the action is supposed to give me what's the hourly wage based on what the person types in. So if I run this again, if the person types, 100, let's say they typed in not 100, let's go with $10, and they worked 40 hours. When we calculate, we should get 400. Okay. So if we don't get 400, something is wrong. First of all, to make this true, I have to get the information. So first, let me do double. Let's get the, first of all, we got to get the hourly wage. And that's going to be equal to double dot pass double. Okay, we got to put in the string in here that we're going to get. Then we got to make another one. Hours worked. And this is going to be like this. See, I like to write my code where I could use things from before. It's easy. And then finally, we need to figure out the overtime. So to get this information though, we're going to go with, we need to get this from the text field that is hourly wage, right? So let me go ahead and copy those two. I don't want to type them. So these two, okay. Well, these three we're going to use. I'm going to copy them, all three of these. Not the label, we need the text field. I'm going to copy these three. I'm just going to put them up here. So these are all little tricks to do, because we know that this one is going to be in here. And I'm going to get the text. This one, hours worked, is going to be in here. And I'm going to get the text. And this one is where the answer is going to go. So let me go ahead now and figure out what's going on. So we got how much they entered for their hourly wage and how many hours they worked. And now we got to figure out how to calculate the salary. So if, see where the if comes in, if the hours worked is greater than 40, this means I got overtime pay. Else, they did not get overtime pay. See how nice and simple that was? Double selection. So what happens here? If you work more than 40, well, 40 is how many hours we expect to be the maximum hours, right? So we should put max underscore hours. Now this is that constant that we made up here, right? Because that's the maximum amount of hours you're supposed to work. So if that's true, then you get overtime pay. If not, then you get regular pay. So let's go ahead and calculate. Let's make a variable to hold the actual pay. Let's call it salary. Oh, let's call it gross. Gross wage. 0.0. So I'm going to set up the gross wage in here on this structure. And then at the end, I'm going to display the gross wage. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to set your text dot. Yeah, I'm going to set text. And the text I'm going to do is dollars dot format, and the number that I'm going to format is the wage. So I need to figure out what the wage is going to be. If you work more than 40, then you got to do how much. I got to get the difference to find out how much extra hours, how many extra hours you worked, and then multiply that by the hourly wage times 1.5. So I'm going to first say gross wage is going to be equal to First, I need to get the hourly wage, multiply that by the max hours, right? Plus the overtime. Now the overtime is going to be the hours worked minus the max hours. That's how many extra hours you worked, times 1.5 times the hourly wage. So that's my gross pay. If you didn't get overtime though, that's where the else comes in. If you didn't get overtime, you could do max hours, right? But we don't know. Don't know if you worked 40 hours, right? We don't know. So instead what we're going to do is figure out how many hours you actually worked. Not the max hours, how much you worked. So let me put that right here. Because clearly you didn't get any overtime. So we're just going to take your hourly wage times how many hours you worked, and that's how much your pay is going to be. So go ahead and run this now. Let's test this out. So 10, and I worked the 40 hours. I got 400 bucks. If I worked for 20 hours, this doesn't work so nice. You see that? I have a little bug in here, right? We have this little bug. I type 20. Look at 20 times 40 is 400. Didn't tell me I should click calculate. So we got to do a couple of things here to clean this up. Next mistake I see is I could actually delete this, but that's not good. Okay. So we got two little bugs here. It does work in terms of calculating, but it doesn't, because I could delete this, I could delete this, and so on. So type something in the field. I should actually, you know what, thinking about it, you should do this. When the person types something into the field, it should clear out the gross wage, because the person would know that the gross wage cannot be calculated, or should be calculated, because it wasn't calculated before. The other thing that we want to make sure is we want to make sure that the person don't make a mistake thinking that what they have, they type in, for example, 10, and I put in 10, and you got 100. I could change this and say, oh no, this was 30, but then this is still 100. So we don't want that. Okay. And that brings us to the end of your wage calculator.